us begin with a question.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Curiosity Catholic, the Evangelium podcast, sharing in the mission to light the fire of Christ in the hearts of Catholics by sharing the truths of our beautiful faith in a compelling manner. In this podcast, we're going to be picking the brains of Catholic enthusiasts to try and get to the bottom of how to live truly as a Catholic in contemporary times. My name is Dominic Malgeri, and in this episode we have Bill Donaghy. Donaghy, I'm saying that right, am I?
You are Donaghy, yes.
Yeah.
Good Irish name.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was trying to look into a bit more before this episode, I typed in Bill Donaghy, who is also a preacher of some sort, and he's got lots of videos on
President
YouTube.
of the Catholic League.
Is he?
Yes, Catholic League. He's a bit older than me, just a
Okay.
bit. Although I look pretty old with the gray hair. He's a bit older.
Cool. So, Bill, for those listening that don't really know who you are, could you give us a bit of a brief of who you are?
Sure, absolutely. So I am Bill Donaghy. I am a senior lecturer for the Theology of the Body Institute. I've been with this institute for 16 years, I suppose, at this point. And it's been wonderful speaking and teaching internationally and across the United States, nationally, on St. John Paul II's Theology of the Body in particular, but really the richness of our Catholic faith in general. So speaking to a variety of audiences, old and young, priests, religious, bishops, married, single, university students. And that's what I'm doing in the heart of the church. Who I am being is a husband and a father. I've been married. I'm in my 19th year of marriage with my beautiful, captivating wife, Rebecca, and my 4 children, Seth, Claire, Sheila, and Kagan. The ages are 13, 11, 9, and 6. So it's full on, Dom, all the time. It's crazy. So we're in the thick of it. This is where the theology of the body meets the theology of the family. Boom.
Yeah. We're just expecting our third one on the way, and so someone said to me, "It's like,
congrats.
Man, life sounds tough." And it's like, well, if life's gonna be tough anyway, you might as well fill it with blessings.
That's a good point.
So you've been doing theology of the body for quite a while, and you've been talking about it. So, but I guess let's give a bit of a testimony. You're a Catholic. Have you been a Catholic your whole life?
Sure.
You're a cradle Catholic, or did you convert later in life?
Yeah, no. So I was born and raised Catholic, cradle Catholic. My mother was baptized, but didn't practice until she met my dad. Baptized Catholic as well, cradle Catholic. She received the rest of her sacraments. They were married in 1968. I was born in 1969, the year they landed on the moon.
There you go.
Cosmic event. So we went to Mass on Sundays. I went to Sunday school and then to public school in my education. And the faith was there, but I wouldn't say it was sort of in our bones and in our blood. And like we prayed grace before meals, maybe, and went to Mass on Sunday. It wasn't until my parents had a divorce when I was about 15 that the reality of God, the reality of this faith came to light. Really, my dad had a kind of reversion and a reawakening to his faith. And it was a really difficult time, Dom. Anybody listening in who's suffered a divorce in their family, their parents or extended family knows it's a rift that doesn't heal. Really kind of, you carry it. So that wound, and it was probably 1985. The beautiful thing is that God, he poured grace right into that wound very soon after the divorce. That's my dad rekindled in his Catholic faith, drew my younger brother and I, into the reality of it all and the beauty. And it was a year after that divorce that we were in a Catholic bookstore in New Jersey on the East Coast of the United States, at a Catholic bookstore at a shrine to Our Lady of Fatima, 1986, when my hands first reached out and grabbed the book. That was the first publication of John Paul II's Theology of the Body. So 1986, I see this book called Original Unity of Man and Woman, Theology of the Body. And I'm coming from the disunity of my mother and father, the man and woman in my life who suddenly their love was sundered. So I reached for this book, and that was the beginning of the end. You know, I got so moved by the beauty of what JP2 was writing about on human love. Um, I didn't read the entire text. It was very philosophical, and I was a 16-year-old kid. You know, I was like a Star Wars kid. I was distracted, but yeah, it shifted my perspective of God. I think as a teenager, you know, you've got images of God that's sort of like he's the lawgiver, he's the big landlord, the big guy upstairs. Theology of the body shifted my image of God to this lover, this beauty that created a beautiful world and made man and woman the pinnacle of that creation. So it's about love, relationships, communion of our hearts with the divine. And it kind of haunted me my whole life, all through the rest of my teenage years, college, young adulthood. And I rediscovered theology of the body at a deeper level in the Jubilee year 2000, which was the same year I actually met P2 face to face. I was in Rome. I was a mission educator at the time, and I loved my faith. And I was doing mission education here in the U.S., traveling to third world countries. So I was part of a mission jubilee in Rome that year, and I was selected to meet John Paul II with 11 other mission educators. So there was 12 of us, very apostolic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we were sort of like icons in the papal mass, the World Mission Sunday Mass, of a new apostolic age to go and bring Jesus back to our country. So re-engaging theology of the body in the year 2000, meeting JP2 face to face. And that's also the year I met my wife, Rebecca, my future wife, Rebecca, the Jubilee. It was a Jubilee year for many reasons, Dom. Many reasons.
That's great.
So it's been a solid 22 years now
Mm.
of just thanking God for the grace of TOB and John Paul II as a
Mm.
giant saint and trying to just get this message out
Yeah, it's
and in
phenomenal.
to my own heart.
Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, especially discovering TOB as a 16-year-old. I mean, I don't know what
Oh,
I would have been like if
yeah.
well, I wouldn't have done. I wasn't Catholic then, but yeah, like I don't know how I
Hmm.
would have experienced life differently if that had been the case. But yeah,
Yeah.
here at Evangelion on the team, we've just well, almost finished. I'm on session 8 of the Marian TOB course, which, gosh, it's
Yes.
mind blowing. And one thing that really came across in doing this course, and I guess I've always kind of like teetered on the idea of this, is it's like theology of the body. When you first hear about it, it's like, okay, yeah, that's sex and marriage, but theology of the body isn't. That's not theology of the body. Theology of the body is like, it's just a perspective of the whole world. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can't quite put it into words yet, but I suppose that's
Yeah.
why so many people have written so many books.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's you're right. I mean, the launch pad or the springboard on which John Paul II leaps into these incredible meditations about life and love is, you know, the man and the woman, the one flesh union God called us into in the Garden of Eden. But that runs like a ribbon through the entirety of Scripture. It's this spousal relationship. So it's bigger and broader than just sex and marriage. It goes all the way up to the mystery of a God who is love, who loves humanity. Divinity and humanity are called to become one body. So when you look through that icon of spousal love on earth, your whole vision of God changes. You realize that he is love, and it's
Hmm.
intimate, exclusive, full on, all in kind of love. And yeah, I mean, once you experience that, there's no going back, right?
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
going back. It's like you're on the path of the mystic. You're on the path of the saint.
And that's something that really has been coming across to me recently because I've also been looking into the sacramental worldview alongside TOB, which
Yes.
the two are just like, you can't separate them.
Oh, they're
Um,
synonymous. Yeah.
but like it's funny because like often when I'm doing one of these podcasts, I'm like, okay, I'll talk on this topic, and then in my mind that topic is separated from everything else, and I'm just going to be talking about this one thing, and then I start looking into it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is in everything.
Yeah.
And so like yeah, the sacramental worldview, tying it into just all theology of the body is telling us how to look at the world sacramentally. And like I'm still trying to
Yeah.
find a way to communicate that to people without using theological terms or sound like a madman. you know because Chris talks about how, I can't remember the exact quote, but the pollen from in spring is a sign
Oh
of God's
yeah.
abundant love, and he gives the image of your car being covered in pollen, and it's
Mhm.
like, okay, so how do you communicate to that to someone without sounding weird? Uh, so,
Yeah, Dom, you just put your finger on the pulse of it all. This is it. It is it is wide and deep. It is cosmic. It is everywhere. And I can't, like, if someone asked me to give a talk on theology of the body, can you give us a 20-minute talk on theology of the body? No, I need 4 hours.
yeah, sorry, you're on your
Because
own.
it turns into it's the theory of everything. It's the golden key. It's the linchpin. It's the hinge upon which the whole door swings of revelation. And that's what I love about it. Sacramentality, if someone's tuning into the show here and like, well, what are you talking about? Sacramentality. The sacramentality of reality is everything we see, smell, taste, touch, we encounter in the body is somehow translucent, transparent. We see through it like a stained glass window. We look at the sun, water, clouds, flowers, bees, birds, babies, man, woman, everything sacramentally, which means everything is saying something. The whole of creation is parabolic, right? It's a parable, which is why Jesus used parables all the time about fire and wind and wheat and the sea. Like the created world is God's first book. The scriptures, the books of scripture are amazing revelation, but the first book was the created world. And as we press in and read it, we start to see like, man, this is shouting about the glory of God. This is singing. Everything is singing. And again, there's no going back, Tom. When you encounter the sacramentality of reality, first off, you're never bored. Like everything's amazing. I'm looking out my window right now. I see barren tree branches. I see some, there could be eastern bluebirds flittering by, sunshine, and everything is saying something. I didn't make any of that. This is not my creation. It's all a
Mm,
gift. So then theology of the body means I'm entering into a dynamic of gift. All of this comes to me as gift. My whole mission as a human being is to just receive the gift. Let it like sort of transform me, fill me with
mhm,
joy, gratitude, wonder, and pull me up. It's like the created reality. Sacramentality means I ride the whole creation like an escalator up, like a ladder. I'm going up. Who
mm,
made this stuff? Who made me? Like, what? Honestly, I think it's exactly what we need today
mm.
because we're kind of we're staring at these
Yeah, yeah.
when it's like, put that thing down. That's our own creation. Look at the other creation and
Mm.
just see how far you can go, all the way up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's something that amazing that happened just yesterday or day before. I've got a 2-year-old. She's almost 3, and she got really
Ah,
excited. I was like, "Dad, come, 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 come!" And pulled me over and said, "It's a snail!" And we spent 20 minutes just staring at this snail, and I was describing to her bits about it, and she wouldn't take her eyes off it. And I was like, "Man, this is." It was like such an amazing blessing because I would never look at a snail in that detail just on a daily basis. But yeah, just like she's discovering this, and I got to rediscover it with her. So praise God for that. But like, yeah, it's just a whole different lens to life, and I think like nowadays we get so like we've got this kind of scientism or like this modernism that I've come to learn is the actual
mhm.
cases, and we only ask the question how. We never ask the question why or who. It's just kind of like, okay, so how does
Yes.
that happen? Okay, now I know how it happens. Move on to the next thing. It's like, but why does it
Mhm.
happen? And who makes it happen that way? And I think also the who question makes you sound particularly mad because if you're talking about like nature, it's like who makes the trees green? It's like,
Mhm.
what do you mean who? What do you mean who? You think some fella goes around painting all the trees? Like, but yeah, again, looking at it in a more
Yeah,
like
you're
Christian
like,
perspective.
why are you so angry, right? Why are people so angry about that question? Because
Well,
it demands a kind of it's a dose of reality. I am not the pinnacle of everything. I'm not the creator.
mm,
I'm the creature that receives it. But we, Dom, right? We would say like that's liberation. I don't want the pressure that I have to be the creator and I have to figure out the meaning of the universe. It's a gift. So yeah, I love to press into the why, the metaphysics of a thing. that whole sacramentality, that sacramental vision. And I'm with you. My kids, I have my little kids, and they always are an invitation into wonder. Don't take anything for granted. Anything. And G.K. Chesterton has a great line about that, where he says that babies and little ones, for them, it's like everything's new stars, new sea, new world. They're new Adams and new Eves. Everything's new. And it's coming to them through their senses. And that's why it's all the more important to get a little bit more unplugged and in touch with the sacramentality of reality. If we shut off that stuff, we don't encounter, first off, each other, and then God through the theology of our bodies, right, and of creation.
Mate, it's next level. I think I'm going to start asking that question more often, like, who did this, just to see the reactions. Because again, it's like, what if someone says it wasn't someone, it just happens? It's like, so you're saying this just happens? You sound crazy. It's like things just happen. It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
It takes a bigger leap of faith to believe that it all just happened than it does to believe in the God who designed it all. I mean, you look at creation, the design is so apparent and clear. It's literally insane to think it's just an accident. That absolutely it defies all logic and reason. It's ironic, Dom, that we as the church, we are kind of like the last defenders now in the world of science, logic, and reason. We're the ones who are like, these are tools to reach God. Right? But it seems like we've closed ourselves off to that. Let creation sing. Let it speak. It's telling us a story. It's telling us something incredible about God.
Yeah, and I suppose that talks about like the divine, like intelligence and intelligent design and creation and stuff. Which we suppose, if we go down that rabbit hole, we'll never get to the topic that we've got you to talk about.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Which is the way of beauty. Yeah, I think beauty, especially nowadays, I think it's coming more into people's consciousness, but I think it's just one of those, it's just really confusing, because like you can experience it, but you can't always explain it, and therefore, you have to seem a bit like a mystic, by which I mean crazy, when you're trying to expound these things to people. So could you tell us a bit about what beauty is and what is this way that you talk about?
Yeah. First off, Dom, I think you kind of already hit the nail on the head. You have to experience it. You can't just explain it. So I'll return to that. You have to experience it, not just explain it. First off, like we go way back to the transcendentals in the Greek minds of Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. You go all the way back. Philosophers and thinkers, our brothers and sisters in the human race, for millennia have realized that truth, beauty, goodness, love, unity, like there's these transcendental realities we encounter in the world. Everybody knows there's these experiences. We encounter them in and through our bodies, through our senses in the world, but you can't put your finger on truth, beauty, goodness. It's sort of it's transcendent, but it's wrapped in the things of the world. So beauty is the most potent transcendental, because beauty is always experienced. It's when you're gobsmacked by an incredible starry night or a sunset or a powerful storm or the laughter of a newborn baby. You're just, or you see a beautiful woman or a handsome man, and you just do that double take, like, wow, you're struck. You're struck by music. Something comes in, you hear it, and it's just, it could be a smell from a bonfire. It could be anything that haunts you, pulls you out of yourself. The experience of beauty tells us there's more, there's more, there's more. And it's been following us throughout all of human history. We just can't get enough of beauty. And that's what's really attractive about it. So you're worried about experiencing it, not explaining it. The other transcendentals, particularly truth and goodness today, are kind of, I feel like they're being compromised in a way. People say things today like, well, that's your truth. This is my truth. And we've robbed it of its transcendent power. Goodness seems like, well, that's like this moral thing and takes effort. And I don't know if I believe in any moral laws. So, I mean, that's good for you. Do you see it? We sort of relativize and shove off to the side truth. It's your truth. Goodness, well, that's good for you. But beauty still, it goes under the radar, pierces our hearts, pulls us out of ourselves. And so the way of beauty, Dom, you mind if I read an explanation of the way of beauty from a Vatican document?
No, go for it.
You ready for the? I'm going to the big dogs right now, Dom.
Okay,
The
okay.
big dogs, the Vatican. This is a wonderful document, and people might not know if you're listening in. Go to the Vatican, Google. It's called the Via Pulchritudinis in Latin, but it's the Way of Beauty, and this came out in 2006. Just glorious. And so this is our Catholic faith saying beauty is important. Beauty is from God. Check this out. This is what the way of beauty is in the mind of the church. The way of beauty replies to the intimate desire for happiness that resides in the heart of every person. I'm going to pause right there in the first sentence. What is the way of beauty? It's a response to the intimate desire of my heart for happiness. Okay, everybody, Aristotle said that, right? Centuries ago. Everyone desires happiness. The way of beauty appeals to happiness. It goes on, it says, opening infinite horizons, the way of beauty prompts the human person to push outside of himself from the routine of the ephemeral passing instant. Okay, the flash, the Snapchat, the tweet, the quick and easy, to pass through that to the transcendent and mystery. And both those words are capitalized in this document. Transcendent and mystery are capitalized because they refer to God. And seek, and here's the end, the way of beauty seeks as the final goal of the ultimate quest for well-being and total nostalgia, this original beauty which is God himself, creator of all created beauty. Woo! So the way of beauty is the way of the poet. It's the way of the lover. It's the way of the person who says, I want more. I'm not happy. I've got money. I've got financial stability and security. I've got a really nice house. I like my car. I fell in love. I love my marriage, but I'm still restless. I feel like there's more. And so the way of beauty is the voice coming from the heavens saying, I am the more. Keep going. Keep going. And it allows us to just open up the ache and say, this world is beautiful, but it's not beauty itself. The way of beauty is saying, keep going. It's fascinating. It filters through music, art, dance, creation, exploration, invention, beauty. Beauty is like the passion behind everything. It's what fires you up. Follow that thing through, and it takes you all the way up.
Mate, you're knocking me out. It's great stuff. You mentioned there the ache, and this is something that I've really been able to relate to, especially since doing the TOB, the Marian TOB course that we've done. And it's talking about this is like my only experience of the only way I can verbalize my experience, and I still don't think this really makes sense of it. Is like, because it sounds bad, but when I'm doing this TOB stuff and I'm looking into this transcendental stuff, it just breaks my heart, and I'm like, that sounds terrible. Stop doing that. Don't break your heart. But in a way that is kind of like a good way. And you're talking about that ache, and I think, I'm just guessing here, but it's almost the world. And I'm going to get into this a bit later. It's like we are hiding ourselves from the beautiful because it hurts. Because when we see the beautiful, it's like my heart's broken, and I don't like this. And so I'm just going to do the thing that heals it back up again, and then go into that. There's a fella called Dietrich von Hildebrand. Apparently he was Hitler's enemy number one. And he talks about this whole the subjectively satisfying and the objectively valuable, and how there's a distinction between the two. And when I heard that, it put to words something that I had been trying to put to words, and it's like, I feel like nowadays we're bombarded with things like scrolling through our phone, Netflix, all the usual stuff. But not even that, just like mindless conversation, and so on, so novels or whatever. And these things, they're not beautiful. They're not to say that they're ugly or they're bad, but all it does is satisfies us. It gives us a dopamine hit, and we're appeased, and we get to that point where it's like, okay, beautiful is appeasing this, And then when we're faced with things like Bishop Barron says, like, if you say the Sistine Chapel is like, yeah, it's okay, it's just not my thing, or he talks about a symphony, I can't remember which one, it's like, yeah, it's okay, it's just not my thing. You can say, no, you're wrong, because objectively this is a beautiful thing, and you thinking it's not beautiful is wrong. It's not that it's not that it's not your thing. It's just that we've been so enculturated into satisfying ourselves, we can no longer recognize the objectively valuable, and in this case, beautiful. So, like, what do we do with that? How do we allow ourselves to break our hearts?
Yeah. Oh gosh, Dom, do we have like 6 hours to have this conversation?
I mean,
Because
I do, but you've got to pick up your kids.
yeah, I've got like 30 minutes. You just tapped into such a rich vein of gold right there when you said about the ache and the breaking of the heart. So yeah, first off, I think our culture, I mean, we're so obviously confused, misguided, a bit in the dark, right? We live in what St. John Paul II would call historical man, a phase of the human drama where we're fallen. It's cloudy and dark. We're redeemed by Christ, but we need to wipe the scales off of our eyes. And our culture is telling us you can be happy right here. You know, if you have the latest iPhone, Max, Pro, whatever, that'll do it. Or if you have this or that, you can be happy here. Stay plugged in, keep flipping through your screens, you know, keep getting that dopamine hit, and you can be satisfied. It's a joke. It's a lie. And everybody knows it's not enough. Everybody knows. We're just afraid to go further. We're afraid, as you just said, to have our hearts broken, but that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Because like as the heart breaks, and here's again, back to creation. Unless the seed falls into the earth and dies, it cannot bring forth new life. That's a parable for your heart. Our hearts have to be broken, buried, exploded, pierced. Let me give you a quote. Are you ready for another quote now? I'm just going to throw this at you. Here it comes. This is from, actually, Pope Benedict quoted this guy, Nicholas Cabasilas. This is 14th century. I love that it's 14th century stuff, and it's ever so present right now. When men have a longing so great that it surpasses human nature, and eagerly desire and are able to accomplish things beyond human thought, it's the bridegroom who has smitten them with this longing. He has sent a ray of beauty into their eyes. The greatness of the wound. Okay, the greatness of the wound shows the arrow which has struck home. The longing indicates who has inflicted the wound. Pope Benedict says, in light of this, quote, beauty pierces us like a dart. It opens us up, gives us wings. The thing is, like, we have to become more vulnerable. We are an ache, and we have to open up the ache to the infinite. You can easily shut it down with your gadgets, with your busy life, your frenetic activity. Turn the radio up, keep working. You can shut it down, but it's going to be destructive if you do that. Open the thing up. Let beauty, and beauty is the most potent way of piercing the heart and cracking it open. This is the invitation right now. Anybody tuning into our conversation, right? Allow yourself to be destroyed by beauty. Allow it to pierce you and open you up. Because this is the thing. This is where you discover your humanity. Because what does it mean to be a human? Father Thomas Dubay says, you and I and every human being is an ache. He says we are an incarnate thirst. You are a thirst. Our culture is saying, quench your thirst, you know, drink this, Pepsi, Coke, whatever, drink it, beer, whiskey, quench your thirst. But we're like, no, wait, I want more. I want living water. And so the secret, the way of beauty is this journey deeper into the ache, right? And it does hurt, it does pierce, but guess what? It's an awesome ache. Think about any experience you've had, Dom, with beauty. When you've encountered beauty, when anybody encounters real beauty, what's the first thing we do? We groan, right? We're like, oh, whoa, because we literally just got stabbed by the dart of beauty. And it's allowing us, I'm sorry, one more quote. Pope Benedict said, the beautiful wounds, and that's exactly how it summons man to his final destiny. Let me say again, the beautiful wounds And that's how it summons us to our final destiny. So we can't shut the door to it and say, like, oh, I don't have time for that, or that's this cultural elite thing. And that's like, I just got to keep my nose to the grindstone and just do my, what a terrible expression, by the way, nose to the grindstone. It's like, ew.
Mm.
Scripture says, look up, your redemption is near at hand. Look up at beauty, which is like your wife and kids, your roommates, the weather of the day, maybe a piece of music that kind of comes to you as a gift. And you're like, wow, it's literally everything. A good cup of coffee, right? A walk in the woods. Look up, your redemption is near at hand. It's going to open your ache, but it's going to make you more happy, more full, more human, more human.
One more thing before we get into like listener questions. I think I mentioned like one of the bridges between understanding the beautiful is the fact that it is transcendent, and it requires us to have a broken heart, and it requires us to desire to get in touch with that transcendent reality. And that just sounds all confusing, a bit abstract, but like it's actually it's right in front of us, because God created beautiful. God's creation is beautiful, and art is beautiful, and music and such like. But I think another kind of barrier is the fact in this world there is so much pain and suffering, and I guess my question is like how, like you mentioned yourself about being a child of divorce. We have things like that. We have people that struggle with fertility. We have people that have lost people that they love. And like, how does the beautiful speak into that? And how can we see the beautiful? And how can we show the beautiful to people that are in those situations, or help us make sense of our own situation using the beautiful?
Oh man, that is such a great question, Dom. It's funny. I have a course I developed for the Institute called The Way of Beauty, and I know you're a student of ours now, so down the road, hope you'll jump on board.
I think I might.
It's a little commercial, but towards the end of that course, we actually go right into that exact question. And it's with the help of a couple of philosophers, Stanislav Grigol and then actually Pope Benedict XVI. And they talk about how the way of beauty, the via pulchritudinis, must meet the via crucis. The via crucis means the way of the cross. Right, because in a fallen world, we can say like, well, that sounds great, but my mom's got cancer. I live in an abusive relationship. My kid, you could fill in all the blanks of all the pain. The way of beauty doesn't mean we're walking through flowery fields and buttercups, and it's not about that. It's a beauty that pierces. So Jesus comes into this fallen world, and he is beauty itself, and yet he enters into the way of the cross. So Pope Benedict reflects on this, right? The most beautiful face in the universe, the face of Christ, becomes at the same time through the cross the most hideous, right? Scripture talks about like he was the most uncomely of men, and no one would look upon him, right? The crucified Christ is the most horrible thing in the universe. But this is the beauty, like the Lord has married these things two together so that the cross, Jesus Christ on the cross, is simultaneously the most beautiful thing we've ever seen, God's love poured out on the cross, and the most hideous thing we've ever seen. He redeems it. So, if we're going through struggles and sufferings and sorrows, we know this isn't the end. Right, the way of beauty passes through the way of the cross. Again, let's get parabolic, or look at creation as parable. Imagine, don't look at the end story yet. Imagine a creature, a spotted, beautiful, colorful creature, a caterpillar who goes into a dark forest, into a dark shrub, builds a dark chrysalis around himself, a cocoon, and is in this dark, damp, isolated place for day and day and day after day and day after day. You can think like, well, that's tragic, that's dark, that's terrible, right? The isolation, the loneliness, the darkness. But as it struggles through that cocoon, we all know what happens, right? It bursts out of the chrysalis, as the most ridiculously beautiful thing you've ever seen, a butterfly with like stained glass windows for wings. It emerges out a completely different transformed creature. The way of beauty meets the way of the cross. We see it in nature. So if people are going through some struggles, when grace is thrown in there, it's so transformative. It doesn't take away the pain, but it transforms it to a whole other level. Again, as Catholics, we're looking at a crucified man on a cross. He's in our rooms, our bedrooms, our schools, our churches. It's like, wow, that's terrible. Why would you put that in your room and look at that all day? Like, because it's sacramentality. That's not the end. I go right through that to glory.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know. It's
because I was just thinking about, like, again, looking at the crucifix. On the one hand, yeah, it's horrible form of torture watching a man get crucified. But again, this isn't just some bloke getting crucified. This is the most perfect creation. Like Jordan Peterson talks about this, and like his insight into religion, like the reason that he doesn't believe in God, whether he does or not anymore, I don't know. I've seen some videos on YouTube that suggest he does, but not from his mouth. Anyway, because he says the weight of being Christian, of believing in God, is too heavy to bear. It's like, I can't live up to that. Because Jesus is the most perfect creation. Like, even if you don't believe in Jesus, just conceptually, you understand that he's the most perfect creation. He is God incarnate. And we've taken this beautiful thing and we've pierced it and hung it out to dry, and killed it. And so that's when you see, like, the most hideous isn't necessarily, I mean, from your description, it maybe was hideous to look upon, but like, it's just everything about it to look at, to think about, the concept behind it. So yeah, and I wanted to talk about also, like, this, again, coming back to sacramentality of the world, because in TOB, there's a massive emphasis on, like, the marital union explains the connection of heaven and earth. But then my question's always been, like, okay, so that's one thing. What about everything else? How can we describe anything else? And I suppose your chrysalis analogy there is kind of, that's how we can interpret suffering in a resurrective kind of way, is watching that, how pain being deformed and destroyed turns into something beautiful. Because I heard that, like, a caterpillar, when it enters into a chrysalis, it doesn't just grow wings, it actually dissolves into goo. It ceases to be.
Its entire everything about it, its entire essence transforms and changes. It's almost like a kind of transubstantiation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because again, it's so different afterwards.
And let me say this, though, as you're pointing out, because, we can think of beauty and theology of the body as the one flesh union, man and woman, that divine romance, that great romance. But here's something powerful St. John Paul II said. He said, spouses here on earth are a constant reminder to the world of what happened on the cross. I'm going to say that again. Spouses here on earth are a constant reminder to the world of what happened on the cross. In other words, we can't think of marriage either as like just a white picket fence and, wine and roses and everything's always perfect. Marriage is death to self. I enter the chrysalis of self-giving love. It's not about me anymore. And I get transformed. I become a husband, a father. Superpowers get unlocked in me. I die to myself to be born into some whole new creation, right? I'm different on it. I mean, I'm still a work in progress. Talk to my wife, but I'm a different entity than I was as single Bill Donaghy, August 8th, 2003. On August 9th, 2003, I became a different creation somehow by the sacramentality of marriage and grace, and by jumping in and committing and vowing to my wife. So that's the cross too. That's the gift of self. It's,
Oh, mate.
What a thing. And you gotta jump.
Yeah, again, we need like 6 hours at least just to pull out every one of these topics. Because I think also the beautiful thing...
I'm willing.
the beautiful thing about all this, I'll get you back on, is it's in reading about it, thinking about it, and reflecting on it. It's healing. It's like, oh, it's okay to feel this way, because the world tells us that, like, oh, pain, no. We have the solution for that. Here's your painkillers, here's your numbing agents, and he's like, yeah, okay, that does stop the pain, but like it doesn't give you anything. It just stops something. And actually, if we lean into that, if we actually really dwell on that, maybe not dwell, but maybe if we reflect on that and allow it to be and just sit in our chest, that pain of our heart breaking, we actually get transformed, and all of a sudden it's like we've got wings and we're flying through life. We're like floating on air, just like like I don't want to I don't want it to seem like it's like oh, the butterfly, and then everything's like skipping through the field with daisies. We still see all the the horrendous.
Oh yeah, we're realists. We are realists. We're realists. Catholics are realists. We're not escapists. We are not escapists. We're not. We're realists, but we really see sacramentally, not opaquely, like it's thick and I don't see beyond it. We're supernaturalists, we see right through.
I was talking to my friend, and she was talking about she did the Camino, and she talking about the suffering she went through there. And I was saying how Christianity, some people say Christianity is a crutch, and I was like, yeah, but this crutch has thorns all over it. And so yeah, we're leaning on it, but it's not nice. It's like, because that's one of the things that's really come across this year as I've been interviewing people, is the call to be Catholic is not a nice one. It requires so much of ourselves, and like,
oh my gosh,
and actually tearing ourselves down so that we can be rebuilt. But we won't be rebuilt here. We'll be rebuilt in heaven, and that's not here yet. So
right. That's right.
It's just a.
I never once thought of my faith as a crutch, because it is a cross. It is a challenge. I am not escaping. It's like we're facing head on. It's like Jesus, who set his face like flint and went into Jerusalem. He didn't shy away or turn away. We're facing it. We're facing the world. You can run away from it. You can try to bury it. You could deny it. But the world's fallen. Suffering's real. The Christian faces it, but not alone. We believe there's something else, and that's part of the way of beauty, that it takes us on this wild ride through all of it.
Again, heartbreaking, in a good sense.
Yes, exactly.
So I think what we'll do is we'll get on with some listener questions now, so then we don't use up too much of your time. The first question we have here is from Shana, and it says, many people disagree that beauty is a transcendental. How would you respond? What is a transcendental?
That's great. Yeah, I don't know, where they would get their information, but we can go all the way back again to the ancient Greeks, and you can find these realities: truth, beauty, goodness, unity, love. Being is also known as a transcendental sometimes, but a transcendental is an encounter with the divine, a kind of theophany or divine manifestation through a physical reality. I mean, it's the transcendentals are where the invisible becomes visible through the physical. Okay, so beauty is solid, it is touchable, tasteable, and it has a universal appeal. I mean, people just think of the experience of newborn innocent life. How old is your youngest baby, Tom? How old's your youngest?
Well, there's one in utero, but the youngest outside turned 1 on Christmas Eve.
Okay, 1. Bringing a baby, an infant, into a space, whether you're at the supermarket or the grocery store, you're walking around, there's something magnetic about innocent newborn life. I mean, we've all encountered it. You could have the biggest, tattooed up, body pierced biker dude getting his milk and bread at the grocery store, and he sees a baby, and it's just like, it draws you in. People driving down the highway, there's a sunset that is literally insane. I mean, magenta and blazing, and you got to be dead not to do that double take and say, whoa, we have these wow experiences. People who encounter, um, even if they've never heard of classical music, they hear, I don't know, the Confutatis from Mozart's Requiem, right? You hear it, and it's pounding, dun, 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 and then there's the Voca Me, the Benedictus coming drifting down, the women's voices. You don't know what language it is. You don't know what's going on. You're like, whoa, goosebumps. What is happening right now? Beauty is substantive. It is real. It can take certainly different shapes and forms, but there are these theophanies where we just get arrested by beauty. And it takes a real morbidity or denial of the heart and mind to resist it. You got to wear like a bulletproof vest not to be affected by beauty when you see it. So it's very real. It's ancient. It comes wrapped in so many different things in different ways. And it's an essential. It's not ornamental. If I have time for beauty, no, we are made for it. We're made for it.
Yeah, but yeah, so some people say that it isn't a transcendental. Like, have you come across that, and do you know what they mean by that?
You're breaking up just a little bit. Can you repeat that, Tom?
So some people have said that beauty isn't a transcendental, and everything you're saying is like, obviously it is, because it's like so fundamental. But do you understand? Have you come across people saying that it's not a transcendental? Do you know why?
Well, when I think people would say it, I think the why there, that people would say that beauty is not a transcendental, is perhaps because they've been kind of, unfortunately, malnourished. I wouldn't say nourished, but malnourished by a modern mindset that says everything is subjective. Beauty is like, the whole beauty's in the eye of the beholder. That's actually not a really helpful statement. That's saying it's all you. It's all about you. It's your subjective. So there is no objective beauty. I would fight that. I would counter that. And I wouldn't be alone in that, that there is objective beauty. The person who maybe thinks it's not a transcendental might be, again, breathing that foul air of a scientific reductionism of our age that reduces everything to just its parts, its mechanisms, its matter, its molecules. And when you do that, you kind of kill it. Wordsworth, the poet, said, we murder to dissect. When we take things apart, well, it's just, it's just stuff. It's just matter. It's inert. It's dead. We just killed it. We took the sacramentality out of it. And I think so. Thinking beauty is merely subjective and there's no objective beauty, it's like taking the soul out of a thing. You're missing the greater part.
I guess it's coming back to that distinction between the subjectively satisfying and the objectively valuable. It's like we get so caught up in trying to satisfy, because I guess that's the thing. That's the difference with beauty. Like I said, it's not satisfying. In fact, it's very unsatisfying because it takes you deeper. Yeah. It makes you realize there's more. Like Christopher West was quoting one of his students saying, "When I see a sunset, I just don't want to see it. I want to eat it." And like, you can't eat a sunset, which is really unsatisfying. I imagine for this particular person. Anyway, Shana has a follow-up question, which is from an artist's perspective. How does one reconcile making art for art's sake while also making a living from art?
Great question. Well, that's the fine line, I think. With a lot of the stuff we're saying here, there's this fine line of the divine and the human, the objective and the subjective, the work of art, as what John Paul II would say should be a bridge to religious experience, and the fact that I need to pay my bills. And, I'm thinking right now of a sacred artist I know, and she, it can be a struggle. It can really be a struggle, but we're not called to manufacture. Art isn't factory line. It's not putting parts together and cranking it out. When we encounter that kind of art, it doesn't move us, right? Because it's been merchandised, franchised. So the artist, the true artist, is going to have to be willing to suffer. Here we go back to the cross, right? Be authentic, make real art, let it be sincere and real. There's a wonderful interview with Bono from U2. He interviewed with a pastor They were talking about the Psalms in Scripture, and Bono was saying it was amazing interviews and conversations. But Bono was talking about the music business, and tongue in cheek, and saying, "Don't just pop out pop songs. Like, tell me about the ache in your heart. Tell me about your marriage that fell apart. Tell me about the suffering in your life. Make real music. Don't just make it to make money." We've got plenty of that around us. But anyway, it's a sacrifice because art it can't just be for its own sake. It's got to go all the way up. It's a window. That doesn't mean you have to force it. I hate phrases like, I'm a Christian artist, or Christian music. Just make music. Just make art. You don't have to label it, because when you do that, there's really gifted Christian musicians out there, Christian artists, but I'd rather have artists who happen to be Christian make real art. Don't force the gospel into a 3-minute song. Don't do that, because it comes off as sometimes a little forced, a little coerced. You got to be more vulnerable to make real art, more vulnerable to the mystery, to my own expression of the divine.
Yeah, and I guess it comes back to that sacramental worldview, and bearing in mind that we're part of the sacramental worldview. We need to view ourselves sacramentally, and that means we need to view our history, our lives, as sacramental, and therefore making visible the invisible. Because I think, like, in my mind at least, it's like when I think of like pop songs or secular artists, I'm like, yeah, they're singing about like this time they broke up with their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. It's like, but that's not about God. It's like, no, that is about God. And I remember when I first came aware of, like, I think doesn't Christopher call it the Twisted Mystics or something? There was this band, I can't remember the name of them now. And I was listening to them, and I'd been listening to it for ages. And then there was this line that I'd been singing, like, mindlessly, not even thinking about it. And the words were, "Nail in my hand from my creator, you gave me life, now show me how to live." And, like, that's the call of the heart. It's like, God, if you are real, where are you? And we can do that in our own lives. And like going back to what we were talking about, like with the pain in life and the beautiful, it's like God is sat with us in our pain. And in singing about our pain, people will be able to see God, or about painting our pain or writing about it. Everything is a window to God if we open our eyes to see through Jesus' eyes.
Yes.
So we've got a couple of questions here from Admiral Akbar. I don't think it's the actual Admiral, but
love that guy. Love him. Lobster man.
Yeah, actually, I heard that the reason that Admiral Akbar was made so ugly, George Lucas said, is like, I wanted to teach people that you didn't have to be good looking in order to be a good person, and I feel like that really speaks into what we're saying here with like the beautiful and theology.
I like that.
Yeah, how cool's that? Go, George Lucas.
Thank you, Admiral Akbar. Yeah.
It's a trap. Anyway,
no, it's a trap.
Anyway, he says, this is more theology of the body. He says, why is sex sacred, and what does sacred even mean in the context of sex? Wow.
Oh,
Admiral.
Dang it, we only have 5 minutes left, Dom. I have to jump in 5. We need to get back in here. Okay. Why is sex sacred? Pope Francis once said, the secret, the center of all reality is the divine communion. The secret and center of all reality is the divine communion. God is a communion of persons, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Catechism says God is an eternal exchange of love, Father, Son, and Spirit, and he's destined us to share in that exchange. The most intimate communion on earth is when a man and a woman engage, right? We would say a husband and a wife engage in this one flesh union, which we used to say make love, which is a more poetic sacramental way of saying it. Now we say have sex. To have sex is to make love. To make love is to be in communion. When you are in communion, body, mind, soul, the masculine and the feminine come together in this extraordinary dance. There's nothing like this on earth. It's so potent and powerful. They come together as a communion of persons after the communion of persons in the Trinity. And that communion, that sex, is so potent that God willing, 9 months later, You have to give it a name. That they made love, and that love needs a name. Sex is holy. Sex is sacred when lived according to this divine design. It gets us out of ourselves and makes others selves. It's fruitful. It's the mystery of God in the visible world. So, and it fuels and shapes all of human culture and history, right? John Paul II once said, as marriage goes, so goes the family, so goes the nation in which we live. If you don't think sex is holy, if you don't think sex is sacred, that will also ripple out and be manifested in the culture. Look at our culture right now, which has derobed and desensitized us to the sacredness of sex. That's just sex. It's just hookups. Well, look at our culture. The ripple has gone out. Now no life is sacred. All life's expendable, disposable. So look, Christopher West often says, if you want to know what's most holy in this world, look to that which is most attacked. Sex is holy.
Oh, wow. Brilliant way to end this on, because you've got to shoot off. But just before you go,
Sure.
if people really enjoyed this, and I'm sure they did, and they want to find out more about what you do, where can they go to find that information?
Sure, and I'm sorry to cut it short, Dom.
All good,
Family
bro.
calls, but I am more than happy to jump on again and do another chat. I'd love to. So tobinstitute.org is the website. And then on YouTube, if you look up TOB Institute, you'll find our YouTube page. So I'm in conversations there, some teachings here and there, a number of videos on my own, some in conversation with Christopher West. We have a lot of fun. We're going to be doing some filming next week as well. I used to be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and all that. Instagram, I jumped off 2 years ago. I'm a free man, Dom. I am a free man. But there is some old Facebook stuff if you want to. But I do often appear on the YouTube channel for the Institute. But you got to come on out and take some courses with us, online or in person. tobinstitute.org.
Very good. And is there anything you want to sign off with? The last 2 minutes or something to say to all those people listening out there?
Yeah. Well, first off, just thank you for tuning into this conversation. I mean, Dom and I are enjoying ourselves. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation. I would say, if the theme of beauty has really touched you, we just put out, literally a couple months ago, our first book from our newly formed TOB Institute Press, and it's called God is Beauty. It is we found a retreat St. John Paul II gave as a young bishop in the 1960s, and we have the retreat God is Beauty that he gave to artists. I wrote a chapter, a commentary chapter, Christopher wrote a chapter, and some of other staff wrote chapters. Go to godisbeautybook.com. And if you like this conversation, godisbeautybook.com. There's
Very
my commercial.
good. Well, thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get off to see your lovely children right now. And everybody, thank you for joining us for another episode of Curiosity Catholic. Remember, if you want to get involved with what we're doing here at Evangelion, evangelizing New Zealand, check us out at www.evangelion.co.nz. Like, share, and subscribe on all our platforms. Just type in Evangelion NZ. And if you listen to us on the podcast app, give us a 5-star rating and only positive comments. Thank you very much. Stay curious, stay Catholic, and God bless.